Happy Super Tuesday, everybody, at least here in California, wherever you're dialing in from. I hope you are well. My name is Albert, host of this particular webinar, mock interview number 89 for a customer success manager. We do this every single week if possible, and the mode of it is pretty simple. We have Corey here from careershakers.com. He is a career coach, and he will be asking questions in regards to any interviewing questions and so forth. And we have Candy, who is from our 8-week boot camp, who is here to answer questions, and feedback will be given each single time. For those of you who are watching in the audience and here for the very first time, you can cheer Candy on, ask your own questions, or ask questions in general about interviews. We're all here to practice, and with the interviewing being as tight as it is today in this job market, it's very important that we are able to master our interviewing process. So without further ado, welcome back, Corey, as usual. Always good to have you here.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. I appreciate it. 11 more until we hit 100. And at 100, Albert said he'll do the interview to celebrate.
Ooh.
So we just need 10 more volunteers, and then Albert will get to do a mock interview for all of us. So if you want to level up your interview game, you want to get some additional tips and tricks, you want to practice for some interviews, please message me or Albert, and we can get you signed up for one of these weeks. And before we kick off the actual interview itself, I want to make sure that first we give a huge round of applause to our brave volunteers every single week who are putting themselves out there for for your education and entertainment purposes. So please do show some love to Candy in the chat, whether you're on Facebook or Zoom, for being a really brave volunteer. This is not easy. And exciting news, she has a upcoming interview this week, so we're going to help her get ready for that. And also that should show you that there are jobs out there. So don't give up hope. It is a very difficult job market right now, but there are companies still hiring. And before we get into the actual interview itself, every volunteer who comes on here gets a platform to talk about their background themselves and talk about what kind of roles they're looking for. So Candy, why don't you give everyone a quick breakdown of your role in like a non-interview setting, and then talk about like what kind of jobs you're interested in, what companies open for remote moving, Bay Area only, etc. So
Okay.
take it away. Platform is yours.
Oh, wow. This is a big moment for me to shine and to tell a little bit about myself. Well, I'm from Southern California, just to give everyone a level set. I'm not the typical Bay Area tech person. I actually fell into tech on accident. I used to be in the medical industry, medical care management, specifically workers' comp, where I had to coordinate care of patients that got injured on the job, making sure they had transportation, translators, their assigned nurse to go with them, making sure they saw their specialists. You're pretty much your entry level admin type of role. I knew with the way things were going and how tech was progressing, I'm not going to have a job that like anytime soon. So I needed to level myself up. I used to take public transit back in the day, Metrolink, if anyone's familiar with taking public transit. And I met with someone on the train that gave me a chance to work at their software company who does medical billing for big insurances. You name it, we probably had our product in their company as part of their operation needs. From there, I was doing inside sales, negotiating medical bills with different medical offices, hospitals, PMOs. Not fun. Don't want to do that ever again if I can get away from it. And again, I knew long-term goal. I can't be in a sales role because working in a call center type of environment, it's just going to be outsourced, or my role is going to be made obsolete. And luckily, someone took a chance on me in the company to give me a role where I was pretty much the main point of contact for one of our programs, and just helping out the customer with being their point guard of like, okay, our platform is down. How can we fix this? I want to upgrade our program rules to fire off like these bills. How can we do this, et cetera, et cetera. And with the pandemic kind of made me reevaluate things. Like, I'm tired, and I will never say this in an interview, but I'm tired of having lining the pockets of health insurance companies, because when you see how medical bills are paid out and the ways that they don't pay out, it kind of gets to you. And having done this for almost a decade, I just needed out. I needed a different market. And so I branched off to being a CSM in SAP software. And my previous company did digital analytics of user experiences. And I learned a ton. Some of the things I learned from my previous software company, it applied over there. And yeah, so my current roles that I'm looking for is really remote. I want to be remote 100%. I don't know if I am risk averse to relocating to the Bay Area, that I've seen some of these jobs for hybrid. Coming from SoCal and then going to NorCal, I feel like that's too much of a jump in my lifestyle. And also too, I don't want to be hybrid. I don't want to get into an office. I'm even though I look like I'm extroverted, I'm really introverted. I just want to sit and grind and do my work. Short-term goals of a company, I prefer any company that'll hire me. Long term, my dream company I would love to work for is HubSpot. I believe in their mission. I really love the fact that the CEO is a woman of color. At my previous company, all of my C-level people and VPs, they were either people of color or women. And it's it's very surprising, especially in tech, to not see that kind of diversity. So I would like to get back into that. So I hope that answers my pitch. I know it was very long.
That was great. So we have a good sense. Remote jobs, ideally, customer success. And someone in the chat was asking for your LinkedIn, so I go ahead. I just threw that in there.
Thank you.
And then I also put in the job description that we're going to be practicing today. Today we're going to be practicing a customer success manager role for Alma.
Oh no, it was user gems. I sent an updated one.
Oh.
I could send it to you.
Oh, my fault. We're practicing user gems today.
Yes.
Good thing almost all job descriptions are written very similar. So let me updated JD, putting that in the chat here for user gems, customer success manager.
There you go.
Okay. So that's what we will be practicing. For those of you who are watching this for the first time, if you do volunteer, you give me and Albert your resume and your job description, and then we're going to create customized questions based on both your background and what the job is looking for. And we can go ahead and get started. So typically how it works is I'll ask an interview question as if I'm the interviewer. And I usually don't give hints unless you get totally stuck, because we want this to feel more like an actual interview to kind of hear what your answers are. And then at the end of your answer, then I'll like switch hats and I'll give some feedback as like a recruiter / coach. And then I'll put the hiring manager hat back on, and then we'll go to a new question. Okay. But use the chat function, anyone here, if you want me to ask Candy some questions, or if you have questions for me in general. So we want this to be as interactive as possible. Okay, Candy, ready to get started?
Yes, I am.
So, Candy, why don't you tell me about yourself?
Well, I'll give you the whole picture of myself, Corey. I am an experienced SaaS CSM with over a decade's worth of working with mostly B2B customers. At my previous company at Glassbox, I was the dedicated CSM to mid-market accounts of 30 plus customers. My book of business was around, the ARR was around 2 million. My renewal rate, while it was 85%, the sales strategy for my accounts was land and expand. So the sales team had to get the business, and then we have to help grow them. My NRR happened to be 125%. And during that experience, since I was the primary contact after sales handed off the accounts to me, I was with the customer from onboarding to renewal, coordinating with insights, with our professional services, with product, with support, just to make sure that they were actually utilizing the product. And during that time, I was I managed to onboard like 15 plus customers, and the time to value for our new customers to get to our platform went from 6 months down to 30 days. So that's what I did at Glassbox. At Mitchell, I was the dedicated CPM for three high touch customers. They were, I wouldn't say legacy customers, they were very mature customers that needed our product to review medical bills on their behalf. And we processed a lot of thousands of medical bills every day for them. Even though I inherited those customers, I did a lot of cadence calls with them, checking in, trying to do cross sells and upsells with them during my time of being their point of contact for coordinating help with support and professional services as well as product. At the end of my time there at Mitchell, I was able to bring the ARR up to 30%.
And on your resume, I noticed that your employment at
Yes.
Glassbox ended in January. Why did you choose to leave?
Unfortunately, revenue was down for the company in 2023. There was a lot of layoffs, and in 2024, I was part of those layoffs. So unfortunately, it wasn't performance based. It was just business.
Okay, great. So I'm going to put my other hat on
Okay.
here, no longer as part of an interview. So one thing I think everyone can note that Candy did extremely well. She led with her metrics first, and she talked about her sales territory and her book of business, as well as the size of the accounts. Because sometimes they may want someone who's done enterprise, someone who's done mid-market, someone who's done more SMB. And so she led right off the bat with all of her metrics, as well as territories, accounts, etc., which I think is amazing, and also shows that she's extremely prepared. She knows all of her MRRs, ARRs, etc. So for those of you who are interviewing for sales or CSM roles, make sure you do have all of your stats ready to go. So it allows the interviewer to get a good sense of her scope of work, as well as her book of business, and trying to see how it works. Now, ideally, obviously I don't work for this company, so we can't practice with me, but ideally, whenever someone does ask, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your resume, or why should we hire you, try to make sure you get some context about the role first. Then especially for like a sales CSM role, get a sense of, which accounts am I getting? Am I getting mid-market? Am I getting enterprise? Am I getting SMB? Trying to figure out what like any context you can get about the role, and then you can try to customize your experience to hopefully match what the hiring manager or recruiter is looking for. Now, I will say this is a bit more of an advanced interview technique, because you have to be better at modifying your answer on the spot. So for those of you who don't feel super comfortable, I would say just stick to your script, quote unquote script, and then go that way. But I can tell Candy's obviously practiced and has very good interviewing skills. So I would say my only suggestion here, obviously, I'm not a real person at this company, but I would say just ask them first for some context on what the role is, which accounts you're getting, etc. And then hopefully you have those experiences, and then you can kind of tweak and customize your answers as needed. It's also helpful though, because let's say they're like, oh, this is for enterprise CSM role for, I don't know, West Coast or something. Maybe, Candy, you've only done mid-market, right? And that could be evident on your resume too. So here, they already know that you've only done mid-market. So don't be like, oh, I'm never going to get this job because they want
Okay.
someone who has enterprise experience. So here though, let's just say that's what happens. You also need to have a pitch ready for, hey, I've never actually handled enterprise level accounts, but you should still hire me because I've been extremely successful with the mid-market accounts. I've been able to do blah, 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 blah. Or you could say, maybe this company is like smaller than your previous company. So enterprise for them is really mid-market for your previous company. Who knows, right? But like, there's always little ways where you can spin your story to also give the hiring manager that extra level of comfort. But don't feel like there's imposter syndrome, like, oh, I've only done mid-market, they're trying to hire enterprise, I'm not going to get this job. They probably already knew you have only done mid-market, and they're interviewing you anyways. So it's actually not a deal breaker for them. And so make sure that you also get over that level of imposter syndrome that sometimes comes up.
Okay.
But other
That's
than that,
a,
I
oh,
would
sorry.
say her answer was very good, metrics heavy, and you can hear she also talked about some key accomplishments that she did, and it wasn't a whole star story, right? So that's why Candy's answer wasn't super long. because she didn't give me this star example for everything, but she gave me very powerful examples of projects or things that she's done to turn around her accounts. Go ahead, Kenny.
Oh no, I was gonna say thanks for that call about the enterprise thing. Actually didn't think about that because like I did stay away from any job description that says enterprise accounts, but I will do that with my upcoming interviews, saying like asking for context.
Yep, yep. And then why don't we just answer? Well, actually, Candy, you should probably answer this one from
Okay.
Laura in the chat, and I'll read it out for those of you who are just listening. The question is, I'm curious how important sales is in customer success roles. This person has lots of experience helping customers, but not necessarily upselling. They've mostly done B2C or business to consumer direct, and many of these companies want a ton of B2B experience. So the question is, as someone who's worked in CSM, Candy, how important is having sales experience when you're trying to get a CSM role?
Not so much as direct sales experience. I mean, if you've ever done any customer service roles, like working as a barista or working as a wait staff, those types of roles, that's considered sales too. It's not hard sales. It's just how you kind of pivot and present yourself as it. As long as you understand, like the only way I'm going to get a customer to buy into my product or to buy into what I'm trying to sell to them is the level of customer service I give them, the best customer experience I'm going to provide them. That's all really being a CSM is. So I hope that answers your question, Laura, and anyone else that is gun shy about transitioning to CSM because you don't have sales experience. It doesn't have to be direct. You just have to know how to translate your experience.
Yep. And then for those of you who are wondering, and we can have a totally separate webinar about this whole thing too. But for those of you who do want to break into like a CSM role, it is possible. But I will also note that the most traditional way to become a CSM is like how Candy did, is you typically do start in as like an SDR or even an AE role in sales, and then you transition into CSM. That's usually the most common track. It's not the only way to do it, but it is the path of least resistance, if anyone was wondering. And then someone in the chat asked, how long should your answer be to tell me about yourself? Generally, like a minute to 2 minutes or so. All the other like star answers should be 3 to 5, but this one should be about a minute to 2 minutes. And that's why what Candy did is great. You should still give examples of really great things you've done, but you don't have to go into the whole star of that whole story.
And I want to also mention to Santa that asked that question why my answer of tell me about myself is long. As Corey mentioned, like I put the metrics, I put like my accomplishments like up front, because I was transitioning from one role to another at the time. I do recall like how hard and difficult it was to tell people, take a chance at me. I can do this with my eyes closed, and they just need to know how you can transfer that. So just being able to tell them, this is what my company is, this is what our product does, because not a lot of people have the time or the bandwidth to even do a quick search on your company or your product, and just hand feeding them the answers to make it easier for the interview.
Yep. Okay, so we got a warm-up question out of the way. Let's get into some of the slightly trickier ones. Candy,
Sure.
can you tell me what was your greatest accomplishment in the last 2 years as a CSM?
My greatest accomplishment as a CSM in the last 2 years is actually inheriting a difficult account from one of my senior coworkers. They they were afraid that my taking over the account is something to be feared. I remember the when I was trying to answer a question to them, they they were very they were very suspect of my answers because I was just answering how I've seen the verbiage being slinged around at work, and it escalated to the point that my manager actually had to jump in to de-escalate the situation. I was embarrassed by that, of course. I've always wanted to be good, and so I had to ask my manager, can you review the answers I'm going to answer back to the customer just to make sure like I'm we're aligned in what we're talking to with each other. A few weeks went by and my boss was able to let go of the reins, and and allow me to talk to the customer without their assistance. And from there, I was able to build trust with the customer and be able to understand their pain points. And they were their attitude towards me turned around from being the person they had very big hesitations to the person that they advocate for.
And why would you say this was your greatest accomplishment?
This is my greatest accomplishment because this was one of my first high touch customers, and I've never worked with like a very high ARR with them before. They were that customer was what 1.5 million ARR. So to be able to turn that around and have them to believe in me to be their CSM was like my biggest accomplishment, to show that I do belong in this.
Okay, we'll move to feedback. I think this is a really good answer for tell me about a mistake that you made and
Okay.
how you were able to correct it, and what you learned from it. Um, I'm not sure this is the best example to
No.
share for your greatest accomplishment.
Okay.
Um, I think in general, for those of you who are for those who are going to be doing interviews, unless prompted to, you shouldn't share a mistake that you've made in an interview, unless the literal question is like, tell me about your greatest weakness, or like a mistake you made or something like that. I would say try to steer away from those types of stories and try to steer more towards stories and examples that highlight only good things that you've done. Obviously, we're all human. People make mistakes at work. But in an interview perspective, it's probably better to play it safe. So is there another story that comes to mind, Candy, of like something super impactful that you've done? I know you mentioned a few examples and you tell me about yourself. Um, but is there like a different one, or is there one of those that you maybe want to expand on?
Yeah, I do. Hang on. I have my script, my talking points over here. I was trying to avoid using it because I remember the call with Summer, the interview last week with Summer, and it's like, oh, don't look at my notes because the recruiter will know. But hang on, let me go see if I have something in here. Greatest accomplishment, I guess. One great accomplishment, it has to do with my time at working at Glassbox. I had one financial services customer where they were wanting to know why there's a trend of customers abandoning their self-registration application process. And from there, I was able to cross collaborate with one of my business insights people to gather data for a week's worth of data. And during that time, we noticed that there were 17,000 users that came into self apply, but however, there was a drop off of 8 people that abandoned registration. And the main reason that happened was because of the fact that the way that our customer system of verifying the address kept on creating an error for these 8,000 users that dropped off. And once I shared that metric and that result to the customer, they admitted that for each application that they get that's successful, that's around $300. So to have 8,000 people within a week's time drop off, that's millions of dollars, that potential millions of dollars that they could have they can't recoup anymore. Because I was able to show the value of like what our product can do for them. They were even thinking about trying to expand the product to a different team within the company, such as their information security team, to see like how to detect fraudulent applications.
And so what was the accomplishment?
We were able to upsell to them.
Do you remember the amount?
The amount, no, I don't.
Okay. I think this is definitely a better example to
Okay.
share. Trying to think how we could enhance it, because the question was, what was your greatest
Greatest.
accomplishment
Okay.
in the last 2 years, right? And so this is definitely an accomplishment. It's got a good result. Um, you obviously able to upsell, which is your key role as a CSM. I'm trying to think of like what parts of the story we could enhance. I think one of the things is, in order to arrive at the solution, it seems it's in terms of how you've shared or told the story so far, it seems like you're shifting responsibility away
Okay.
from yourself, right? Because you talked a lot about how you had to involve someone from the data engineering team to look at X, Y, and Z reasons for customer drop off and conversion, blah, 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 right? So based on how you told the story, it seems like it wasn't entirely Candy's solution that solved the problem for the customer, right? Um, Even if that may be true, I might turn these lights back on. Even if that may be true, you don't want that to be interpreted during the interview itself,
Okay.
right? So you could just word it in a way where you're not stealing the credit, but you're also not like giving all of it away. So you could say like, so one of the things that we did, right? You could use we here. One of the things that we did is we wanted to do a deep dive on, or no, actually you could say, well, first, my initial hypothesis was that this problem could be a result of customers something something something. I've seen this in some of my other key accounts where they've run into similar technical issues, and the customer believes that it's that our product is faulty, but actually some of it is due to, I don't know, configuration mistakes or customization, something fancy words, right? And then you could say, so we looked into that, and for this particular customer, we noticed that these 8,000 customers were actually dropping off early in the sales cycle due to X, Y, and Z. I brought in our customer engineering team. We were able to configure a custom solution for this client that led to blah, 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 blah. They were so happy with how we handled this. They actually increased their, I don't know, subscription service, whatever, user contracts, blah, 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 led to an increased ARR of blah, 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 blah. So we were able to turn around this really unhappy customer into one of our biggest, mid-market accounts in 2022.
Okay. Okay,
So
thank you for that.
you're also not taking, like, with the words you're using, you're not being like, oh, I did all this work, but you're also not saying like, I contacted engineering team to look at the data, and then they told me that this is what was wrong, and then they fixed it, and then the customer renewed. Because then it's like, well, then what did Candy do, right?
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, I'm taking note of that because I've always thought too, because like some of these roles say like you're able to cross collaborate, but at what point is like cross collaborating versus taking ownership of like doing the work? That's what I've been noticing a lot
mhm.
with the jobs descriptions.
Yeah, and I mean, like, but everyone's job, you have to cross collaborate, right? Like, no
Hmm.
one who works at a company can do everything by themselves. So it's kind of implied, but
Okay.
also in how you tell your story, you don't want to make it seem like you didn't do much. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay then.
All right. So next question, Candy, can you tell me about a time where you improved a process?
A time that I improved the process was back when I was working at Mitchell in inside sales. I noticed that there was a gap in sharing of knowledge between all the salespeople in terms of like who are the best contacts to reach out to for a sale, what the contact information is, and even what percentage to send out the sales. So what I ended up doing is creating a repository Excel spreadsheet of like, here's the main contact, here's the preferred method of contact, here's what they'll accept, what they won't accept, and which lines of business are they interested in, if they'll take a sale from auto insurance, if they'll take a sale from health insurance, etc. By being able to share that knowledge to my team, we're able to increase our sales by around 15%, and our team efficiency went up by 17%.
So what would you say is the process that you improved?
the process I improved is mostly having a single repository that everyone can share that knowledge gap between each other, because there was none. It was just people shooting darts in the air trying to make a sale.
Okay. I'm trying to think how we can word this into a process. I guess we could say the prospecting process that your company had at Mitchell, you noticed that there were inefficiencies in terms of how, yeah, uh, prospecting for net new accounts for BDRs. There was inefficiencies in the prospecting process. Um, and I want to make it sound more complex than sharing the list of
I know it's
um,
I
like
really.
I understand that is probably what happened, right? But like, you know, in the interview, we got to jazz it up a little bit, you know. Um, so yeah, there was an inefficiency in the prospecting process for BDRs when it came time to identifying um, key decision makers and stakeholders for net new enterprise accounts or whatever, SMB, whatever, mid-market accounts. Um, and so, maybe like, I don't know if this is true, but like if you, I don't know, maybe you ran a training for other SDRs, teaching them how to properly identify new contacts using I don't know, like LinkedIn Navigator or um, what's that database that all y'all use? Um,
Not
it's escaping me.
what, Zoom Info or something? Or
Yes, that thing.
okay.
That thing. Yeah, yeah. Anyways, I don't know. We need to find a way to jazz it up a little bit more than just like, you know, I shared a list of the names of the accounts. Because, okay, so in general, for folks who are listening in, I know my idea sounds a little bit rambled right now, but the question was, tell me about a time you improved a process. So when you are thinking about examples to share, you want to think about a business process that your team has and how you changed it or improved it, right? And so, for example, knowledge sharing or training is not necessarily improving a process, right? You're just giving information to other people. You're not fixing how something is done. So you need to think about how things are currently being done or how they were currently being done with your team, and then how you made a suggestion or change something, tweak something, even maybe threw it all out, build something brand new in order for how they do things. That is a process.
Oh my gosh, Corey, I am so sorry. Like I do actually have a process improvement actually, because
Oh,
I
great.
was at Glassbox, I actually created a customer success plan because there was a lack of documentation of aligned business goals between sales and customer success. And I created it using examples that I saw online, as well as getting feedback from my CS team just when I shared like my rough draft in progress, aligning it with what sales tries to tell us when they make a sale to the customer of like why they need the product. And from there, I was able to actually QA, or I don't know, like live tested on some of my smaller accounts, and our conversations actually was more productive and more scalable and more. It was easier to track and be able to keep track of milestones and share it with other teams as well too. And CSAT score went up by 5%.
That's much better. Yeah, yeah. I
Thank you.
think that's definitely much better.
I should have led with that. this is
And then
actually this is actually more like nerve wracking than I was expecting it
and
to
then I
be.
think, but if you have to define the process that was improved, I guess it would be like your sales, like the sales handoff. I don't know what you guys call it, right? But
Sales handoff, yes.
yeah, like the sales handoff process that existed at Glassbox before was X, Y, and Z, which you noticed led to X, Y, and Z problems, inefficiencies, customer complaints, loss of milestones, miscommunications, blah, 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 blah. So to improve the process, you decided to, I don't know, modify, change, swap out, replace, skip steps, whatever, explain, right? You did this to modify the process. And as a result, the sales handoff from, I don't know, BDRs to AEs to CSMs, I don't know, reduced time X%, CSAT scores went up 5%, blah, 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 blah. Milestones were better communicated with engineering. I don't know, whatever it is you want to throw in there. But I would say, yeah, that is the process. Was the sales handoff process was improved by you doing X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
And by the way, in general, companies like to hear examples where you've improved the process because it shows that you're doing things outside of your core role. So this is just a general thing that I'm saying for people watching. Your most powerful examples generally will come to process improvement stuff because it shows that you're doing stuff outside your core role. So for example, in Candy's role, she's a customer success manager, which falls under the sales bracket. So obviously the core part of your role is to maintain your customer base, upsell, increase renewals, etc. But if all of your examples in all your interviews only talk about you selling stuff or upselling stuff, then they're going to get the impression that you don't do anything outside of the core role. Like you don't do anything extra. You just do your job. And then at 5 o'clock, you check out, you go home. Obviously, we'd all love to go home at 5, but when you're competing in a super competitive job market, they're going to hire the person that closes deals, but also fixes stuff. So just keep that in mind. And then there's a question in the chat. So for the interview question, tell me about yourself. Should you only talk about your experience in the last 2 to 3 roles, or should you just talk about the last role? So it's going to depend on everyone's situation, but if you are applying for a job that you already are currently doing, then I would say it's best to talk about your more current role, because that's what they're going to care about. And also you should talk about things that are not on the resume, so it doesn't seem like you're just regurgitating stuff they already know. But if you're doing a career switch, that's when it gets a little trickier. So then you're going to have to kind of find that balance between recency and relevancy. All right. This is a very interactive session this week, which is very good. All right, new question. Candy, tell me about a time you used and analyzed data to make a good decision.
At Mitchell, since I was overseeing thousands of medical bills coming in, one of the software that I did use to look where there's a bottleneck in data flowing in and out is Tableau, and then also running SQL queries as well, just to make sure. And I'm sorry, Corey, can you please repeat the question again? I started off and then to answer and I forgot.
Yeah, no worries. Tell me about a time you used and analyzed data in order to make a good decision.
Okay. In one instance with one of my customers, I noticed a very high dollar amount hospital bill stuck for a long time in one of our billing cycles on our platform. $1.5 million for a hospital bill is very expensive. And when you work with health insurance companies, they get very antsy when they see, why is this not going anywhere? Part of my first response to looking at that is like checking where in the workflow they're stuck in. Is it an internal problem? Is it a data flow problem? Is it an API problem? From there, I saw that it has nothing to do with nothing technical. It was paying the bill correctly and appropriately to where the bill was coming from. So I went another step beyond what I usually do, and I had to ask for a specialist. Hey, can you look at this bill to make sure like it's paying properly? Because I know like a 1.5 million hospital bill, it will make anyone nervous, and that's a lot of money. The specialist looked at it and they said that it was fine. And my next go-to was to then ask the customer, actually, like, these are the steps I try to do. There's nothing technically wrong. I had a specialist review it to make sure that it's paying appropriately, and they said it is. there's a third option that you don't have this, but I want to present this option to you. Like, do you want to use our negotiation services to try to bring this down? Because other customers, such as yourself, do use it, and they had success of bringing down their bill, the bill down from 20 to 50% off. They gave me the go ahead to like try it as a one-time thing. Luckily, I was able to talk to the negotiation department, and they were able to bring down this $1.5 million bill down to $475,000. Big win all around, and customers are very happy that I made sure to follow the road of where this bill was going. Made sure to check everything right to see like what I can do to help them win with it, and yeah, everyone left a winner.
So what was the data analysis that you did?
The other than looking at data, definitely for that one, in that instance, I don't know how to answer that, because like having done it having been in that industry for so long, you know when something is right. It was intuition, no quantifiable data.
Okay, no worries, no worries. So this question is tricky. I know there's not necessarily a lot of data analysis work in the traditional sense, in like a CSM role. But the point of the question is for them to get a comfort level that you are comfortable with data and you're able to spot certain trends or anomalies. You're able to investigate it objectively and then arrive at some type of conclusion and or solution for the business or your customer, right? So I think we were able to accomplish that second part. You were definitely able to help the customer. It was a win-win for everyone. I think the part that needs to be enhanced in terms of this story is the analysis that you took, maybe to uncover the problem or to verify the problem, like maybe how you cross-referenced it with other accounts, or there were other bills of similar sizes, but they had longer or like had shorter outstanding due dates or something, right? Like, give me a sense of your comfort with data. I know, like in your previous example, before you switched, you were talking about how you use Tableau and X, Y, and Z. So I don't know, maybe you can like sprinkle that in there too, as to like you pulled some Tableau reports or you had to build some Tableau reports in order to verify or reconcile that this thing was even correct or something, and then you investigated it, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, I think the situation with that is, so with workers' comp medical bills, there is a finite time that it needs to be paid off. Like, let's say 2 weeks. Usually our software is to take care of it within five business days. This is very important for context. 5 business days versus 5 calendar days. What had happened in this situation is the bill was sitting out there for like over a week, not doing anything, and it got stuck. And that's what got me worried, because, oops, mistakes happen. I'm human. Didn't notice that it's still stuck out there. And now I have to like troubleshoot all this to make sure, like, is it doing what it needs to do? If everything checks out, what else, other steps I can do to save this bill?
Right. But I think the focus that we need to try to enhance on the story, right, is the analysis part. So maybe there's a report that you built that flags these cases that are outstanding for more than 5 business days. And then there has to be also some data validation, I assume, as well, right? Like, you can't just assume that, oh, it's been out for 7 days, this must be correct. Let me call a specialist to look at it, right? Maybe you also have another report to double check that it actually is it has been outstanding for 7 days, and there's no other possible explanation as to what could have happened or something, right? Like, give me a sense that you're comfortable with data, tools, and technology.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to. I would talk about customer health score data points, analyzing different data points in health score. Oh yeah. Thank you for the suggestion in the chat. That's very good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I think
actually
like
like that too.
another place you could say you've analyzed data to make a good decision is you could look at your own customer CSAT scores, right? Or maybe broader scores for your team, product, company, geo, whatever. Analyze that, find key findings or things that may help you upsell, cross sell, etc. Um, Produce suggestions for engineering to enhance your products, add features, right? Like there are other avenues for analysis for CSMs. Look at that chat coming through.
I know, Aman, thank you for that. That's very helpful. I'm gonna have to tweak my story, my talking point on that. And thanks to Corey for pointing out like where I can improve more too.
Well, that's what these practice interviews are for, right? So as you can see, they work. So everyone watching, please volunteer. Okay, let's try a hypothetical question, which typically y'all will get at final rounds. So, Candy, imagine we've hired you here at User Gems as our customer success manager. And then imagine one of your customers is considering terminating our contract and going to one of our competitors. How would you handle this situation?
Other than not letting that happen to begin with in the first place.
Yes.
The first step is, of course, finding out why the customer is churning. There's always a reason. Just like in sales, there's always a reason as to why it's not going to happen. Always ask. I will ask open-ended questions. What about this experience with us that is making you decide to churn? Listen with an open mind, open heart, open ears, and just take notes of it. If it's about money, maybe we could talk a deal about like, hey, I know times are tough. Here is a discount to kind of sweeten the deal in to renew with us. And then when things are a little bit better, then we could talk more about about contract negotiations later on down the line, limit the time frame of the contract. That's more tactical. If it's about like I'm not getting the service I need from this and we're going to a competitor, then just I would bring up like, of course, again, listen to what it is and present use cases of like customers in your industry. This is what they've been able to achieve. If it's a personality fit, I guess it depends on like what the personality is. If they are set in stone of like, I need to hit these metrics and these metrics weren't hit, we could try to do a do-over and say, okay, let's have a success plan. Like you tell us what is your objectives, what's your outcomes, what's your goals, and I'll level set with you if this is what our product can and can't do. And if we can't even do that, no hard feelings. We hope to attain your business in the future if things are more stable.
And in what cases, in your experience, would User Gems consider letting this customer walk away?
A, a, a customer that walks away, it's pretty much not an ideal customer profile. They were sold on dreams, but not reality. And that's what seems to be the case with most customers in any industry when they churn. The product did not meet their needs.
Okay. All right. So hypothetical questions are always super tricky because you don't get to tell a story that you've rehearsed and practiced, but you obviously can leverage your experience from previous work examples to inform how you would try to solve this imaginary hypothetical scenario. So one of the things that Kenny did very well, which everyone can learn from, is because this is a very broad question, and obviously she doesn't work here and she has no context. What she did, which is very smart, is she walked us through three, you can call them examples or scenarios that may be the cause of the problem. So in this case, the problem was that the customer doesn't want to renew. And from Candy's experience, there are three potential reasons as to why. The first is price. Then she walked us through how she would handle that objection. The second would be due to product. And then the third would be due to service. And then how she would handle each of those different scenarios. This is good, and this is what you always should do, in a hypothetical question, because this shows your experience and it shows that you actually know what you're doing in the job, because you can handle, in this case, 3 different scenarios that can happen. I know for a lot of people, when they do a hypothetical questions for the first time, your first thought would be, well, I don't work here, so like I don't know why the customer would be leaving. So, Mr. or Mrs. Interviewer, can you tell me why the customer is leaving? And then they're going to go, well, this is like, it's an imaginary scenario, Candy. Like, why do you think the customer would want to leave? And then you would go, well, I would ask them questions to figure out why they leave, and then I'll solve those problems for them. And then your interview answer ends up being 5 seconds, and then you wonder why you don't get the job. So here, please do what Candy did, which is throw out some ideas as to why the customer may be churning, and then how you would solve those problems. Now, that gets you like what I would say is like a B. That gets you like a 7 out of 10. But if you want to get your answer to a 10 out of 10, the next step of this is you need to think a little bit outside the box, right? You need to think either creativity, or you need to be thinking like 2 to 3 steps ahead. Either of those will help you get from a 6 or 7 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 answer. So the first one would be, okay, what is a super creative solution that I could propose to handle an objection as it relates to price? So obviously everyone's answer is going to be, well, I'll offer them a discount. Okay, obviously, like you and the 50 other candidates I interviewed today are all going to say that you would handle the pricing objection by offering a discount. So here, is there any other potential solution that you could propose that would make your idea drastically different than other people, right?
One solution that we did do at my previous company is to offer not so much as a discount, but to offer as in good faith. If they renew with us, we'll give them 3 months, of free usage of our platform.
Yeah. Or sometimes people will not change price, but they'll throw in like 6 months of premium level service from whatever customer support team, blah, 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 right? Or like they'll throw in like free configurations for future instances of whatever software, or they'll throw in like extra user license. Right. Like there's like many different terms and contract things that like you could offer to tweak that would not just be purely offering a discount. Right.
Okay.
So like that's just one example of like how you can propose a creative solution that would help you stand out from other candidates. Now, let's go on the other end of the spectrum. Let's just say you're in the moment and you're feeling nervous and you just throw out like the basic solutions for all 3 of these. No problem. What you also can do is you can be thinking 2 to 3 steps ahead now, and this is where you're going to enhance your answer. So you could say, first, they may have objection about price, I give discount. Second, they may not be happy with the product, I ask them why, I work with engineering, I solve the problem. Third, they may have a problem with our service, so then I figure out what they don't like about the service, see if we can find a way to make it work, blah, blah, blah. Standard, fine answers. Okay, but then let's think 2 to 3 steps ahead. Now you may say, before you end your answer, you may say, okay, but after having this conversation with this customer, I would also note that this customer has the same customer profile, similar account terms with 50 other SMB customers that I currently also manage. So now I'd be concerned that these other 49 customers may have similar issues that this customer may have. And so to proactively avoid these, one thing I would do the following day is I would start a outreach campaign. I'd work with our product marketing team in order to advertise all of the significant benefits that our product has over some of our competitors. And I would leverage some of the testimonials or user examples that this previous customer has shared with me as to why other competitors may seem more attractive from a product feature and or pricing perspective. So we can build marketing campaigns as it relates to, I don't know, new features that are coming out, or we could even include newer customer testimonials, which would enhance our customer brand and allow us to actually upsell at renewal as opposed to offer discounts. I don't know, right? Like thinking 2 to 3 steps ahead, forward looking, is also another way to help enhance your answer.
Okay. Man, you sound like CSM already, Corey.
I've coached quite a few. But so for those of you who have hypothetical questions and are wondering how to like stand out here, you want to obviously cover your bases. So talk about some different scenarios, how you would handle them, pricing, blah, blah, blah. But then be like, okay, that's my starting answer. What can I do to enhance this and make it better? And then someone in the chat says maybe taking features off that they're not using and giving them a cheaper plan. Yeah, so that could also work because it's not it's for them. It's kind of like a discount, but for you, you're actually not giving a discount because you have to provide service and support for less stuff. Not all companies though work like that, and not all softwares can be turned on and off and actually saving you money. But that is a creative out of the box solution that could be proposed. Okay. Those are all the questions that we had practiced for today. Thank you everyone in the chat. This was amazing. And if you want other to see other mock interviews, check out the Albert's List YouTube channel. And then also if you want tips, I've got interview tips, resume tips on the Career Shakers YouTube channel as well. Back to you, Albert.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Corey. Everybody also please give Candy a round of applause as well for being so brave and coming on here. If you'd like to be somebody who gets mock interviewed here in the near future, please send me your resume and a job description and we'll get you right on. In the meantime, best of luck in your job interview. And please join us for other events going on tomorrow, or rather this week and next week, including how to use artificial intelligence in your job search. You'll find all of that on Eventbrite and more. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye.